So let's talk about critical thinking. We hear that phrase thrown around all the time, right? And usually it sounds like it's all about winning arguments, about being the smartest person in the room. Well, today we're going to look at it a little differently. We're diving into the work of Julie Bogart, who reframes critical thinking not as some kind of weapon, but as a journey of discovery. And this whole journey kicks off with a pretty surprising story. So, Bogart is going through her grandparents' old letters, and she finds one where her grandpa is bragging that he and his future wife are going to make love on a hill. You can imagine, the family was like, whoa. But then her aunt, who's a professor, points out that back in the 1930s, making love just meant flirting, courting someone. It's just a perfect little reminder that interpretation, it's everything. And that little family anecdote, that's really the heart of this whole thing. What if the goal wasn't about proving you're right, but about getting closer to the full story? Understanding all its different layers, its hidden meanings, and where everyone involved is coming from. That idea, it just changes everything. It turns confrontation into pure curiosity. Okay, so if everything's a story, where do we even begin? Well, our first step is to figure out who's holding the pen. This is like the foundational tool for any critical thinker, and it all comes down to one really simple but super powerful question. I mean, think about the Three Little Pigs. We all know that story, right? The wolf is big, he's bad, the end. But in this brilliant retelling of the story, the wolf's version is that he just had a really bad cold. He was just trying to borrow a cup of sugar, he sneezed, and whoops, the houses fell down. And hey, he ate the pigs because, you don't let a good ham dinner go to waste. Is it a ridiculous excuse? Maybe. But it perfectly shows that who tells the story completely changes the story. And this leads us to a really practical toolkit you can use for pretty much any narrative, whether it's a news article or, a fairy tale. We've just got to start by asking, says who? Who's actually telling this story? Do we trust them? And maybe the most important question of all, whose voice are we not hearing? All right, so asking says who about stuff we read or watch, that's one thing. But the journey of a real critical thinker, well, it always takes a turn inward. And let's be honest, the hardest storyteller to question is the one living inside our own head. Bogart has this fantastic term for it, taking an academic selfie. I love that. It's this idea that we have to flip the camera lens around and take a good, hard look at ourselves. How do our own experiences, our own beliefs, our own feelings totally shape the way we see the world? Because they do, whether we realize it or not. And this is the kind of script that's just running in the background of our minds a lot of the time. We don't even notice it. We see some new piece of information and our gut reaction might be, ugh, I don't want that to be true, or yikes, that fact kind of messes up my whole argument. Just recognizing that this internal narrator exists is a huge, huge step towards thinking more clearly. Let's see this academic selfie in action. Bogart tells this very personal story about visiting Eastern Europe. She went in with this idea that life under communism was just bleak and miserable for everyone. And then she met a young woman whose parents had lived in one of these stark apartment blocks, and they'd been happy. The woman told her they had jobs, family, a home they loved. That one single conversation completely forced Bogart to confront her own biased mental move. And this is exactly why that inner work is so crucial. It's like Martin Luther King Jr. said, true education isn't just about being smart. It's about intelligence plus character. It's having the humility, the courage to actually examine our own assumptions. That right there is the heart of a real education. So doing this internal work really prepares us for how we engage with the world around us. But here's the thing. Not all interactions are created equal. And Bogart makes this really important distinction between an experience and an encounter. Okay, so an experience, that keeps you right at the center of your own universe. You're like a tourist, you're observing things from a safe distance, using skills you already have. But an encounter? Whoa. An encounter totally decenters you. It throws you into the deep end. Suddenly, you're not a tourist anymore, you're an expatriate, just trying to figure out a new reality that doesn't play by your rules. Bogart's story about trying to get a taxi in Morocco is just the perfect example. She's standing there, totally shocked by what looks like complete chaos. No lines, people are just shouting and shoving their way into cabs. Her first reaction? Outrage. But after a while, she started to see it. There was an invisible order, a totally different set of social rules she had to learn. She had to adapt. She couldn't just stand there and observe. And that's the key, isn't it? An experience kind of confirms what you already know, but an encounter An encounter shows you that what you thought you knew just isn't enough. It's in those disorienting, kind of destabilizing moments that our minds are really truly forced to grow. So, if this whole journey is about understanding stories, questioning ourselves, and seeking out these world-altering encounters, what's the destination? What's the actual goal of all this hard work? Well, the goal isn't certainty. Certainty is rigid, right? It closes doors. Instead, Bogart suggests that the goal is intimacy. It's about developing this tenderness for a subject, this hunger to know it fully, with all of its compelling parts and all of its unavoidable flaws. It's about building a relationship with an idea, not just slapping a final verdict on it. At the end of the day, what this really means is we have to let go of that burning need to win. The real victory isn't ending the debate because you proved you were right. It's having the strength and the curiosity to just stay in the conversation, especially when it gets tough. And that brings us to our final thought. Just think about a topic, or maybe a person, that you feel absolutely certain about. What would it look like to walk back into that conversation, not armed with your rightness, but with genuine open curiosity? What might you discover if the goal wasn't to win, but simply to understand?